When you deposit money in a bank, you believe that money belongs to you. It does not. The moment your money enters a bank account, it legally becomes the property of the bank. You become what the law calls an unsecured creditor, not a customer, not a depositor whose funds are protected, an unsecured creditor, which means in a financial crisis, your bank can legally use your money to keep itself afloat, not your money above a certain threshold. Your money. And the law that makes this possible was passed by the United States Congress in 2010. It is called the Dodd-Frank Wall Street Reform and Consumer Protection Act. And most Americans have never heard of the provision buried inside it that changes everything about how safe your bank deposits actually are. In the next 8 minutes, I am going to show you exactly what this law says, who it affects, how FDIC insurance fits into the picture, and the 3 specific steps that protect your wealth from a system most Americans never knew existed. This is RateScope. Logic, not hype. Let me start with the history that explains why this law exists, because understanding where it came from is the only way to understand why it matters right now. In 2008, the United States financial system nearly collapsed. Major banks that had made catastrophically bad investment decisions were failing. The government response was a taxpayer-funded bailout called taxpayer and the Troubled Asset Relief Program. $700 billion of taxpayer money went directly to the banks that caused the crisis. The public was furious. Banks took enormous risks. Banks failed, and ordinary Americans paid for it. Congress responded in 2010 by passing the Dodd-Frank Act. The stated goal was to end taxpayer-funded bailouts forever, and it did. But here's what Congress replaced taxpayer-funded bailouts with, something called a bail-in. Instead of using taxpayer money to rescue failing banks, the Dodd-Frank Act created a legal framework where banks can use depositor money to rescue themselves. Same outcome. Different source of funds. And the depositors whose money funds the rescue never voted for it, never agreed to it, and in most cases, never even knew the law existed. Let me explain exactly how the bail-in mechanism works under Dodd-Frank. The law created what is called the Orderly Liquidation Authority. Under this framework, when a major financial institution is deemed to be failing and poses a systemic risk to the broader financial system, the FDIC can place it into receivership. Once in receivership, the bank undergoes a process that can include converting depositor funds above the FDIC insurance limit into equity in the bank, not giving you cash back, converting your deposits into stock in the failing bank. Bank stock that may be worth dramatically less than the cash you deposited, or worth nothing at all if the bank ultimately fails anyway. Let me be precise about who this affects most directly. The FDIC insures deposits up to $250,000 per depositor per bank per ownership category. Deposits below that threshold receive full FDIC protection. It is deposits above $250,000 that are classified as unsecured creditor claims under the Dodd-Frank framework. And it is those excess deposits that can be converted to equity in a bail-in scenario. For most Americans with standard savings and checking accounts, this threshold may not apply. But for retirees with significant liquid savings, for small business owners with operating funds and bank accounts, for investors who received large proceeds from selling a home or a business and temporarily parked the money in a bank, deposits above $250,000 at a single institution are genuinely exposed to the bail-in framework under current law. Now let me address the FDIC insurance question directly, because most Americans believe FDIC insurance protects everything in their bank accounts automatically. It protects a great deal, but not everything. And the gap between what most people think FDIC covers and what it actually covers is where the real risk lives. FDIC insures up to $250,000 per depositor per bank per ownership category. That phrase per ownership category is the key to understanding how the coverage actually works. A single individual account at one bank is covered up to $250,000. A joint account with a spouse at the same bank is covered up to $500,000 because it is a different ownership category. An individual retirement account at the same bank is separately insured up to $250,000. A business account at the same bank gets separate coverage. By understanding ownership categories carefully and potentially spreading funds across multiple institutions, you can extend FDIC coverage significantly beyond the basic $250,000 figure. But here is the limitation that most people never consider. The FDIC Deposit Insurance Fund has limits. As of 2026, the fund holds roughly $120 billion. Total insured deposits in the United States banking system exceed $9 trillion. The fund covers approximately 1.3% of insured deposits. In a normal year where only a handful of small banks fail, the fund is more than adequate. But in a systemic crisis, the kind of scenario the Dodd-Frank bail-in framework was specifically designed for, the fund would be overwhelmed within days. In that scenario, the FDIC can borrow from the Treasury, but that borrowing is a political decision, not a guarantee. And the SVB and Signature Bank crisis of 2023 demonstrated exactly how this works in practice. When Silicon Valley Bank failed, the FDIC invoked a systemic risk exception and covered all depositors regardless of the $250,000 limit. But that decision required a specific regulatory determination that the failure posed systemic risk. It was not automatic. It was not guaranteed by law. It was a discretionary decision made by regulators under extraordinary political pressure. For deposits below $250,000 in institutions that fail without triggering the systemic risk exception, the standard FDIC coverage applies and is fully reliable. For deposits above that threshold or in a systemic crisis, the picture is more complex. Unsecured. Now let me show you the 3 specific steps that protect your wealth from this framework. Because the risk is real, but the protections are equally real when you know what they are. Protection Step 1. Understand and use FDIC ownership categories strategically. The $250,000 limit applies per ownership category. A married couple with individual accounts, a joint account, and individual retirement accounts at the same bank can have well over $1 million in fully insured deposits by structuring their accounts correctly. The FDIC publishes an electronic deposit insurance estimator on FDIC.gov that calculates your exact coverage based on your specific account structure. Use it before your next large deposit. Protection Step 2. Spread deposits across multiple institutions above the threshold. The simplest and most reliable protection against bail-in exposure for deposits above $250,000 is to spread funds across multiple separate banks. Each institution provides separate FDIC coverage up to the per-category limits. A deposit of $750,000 at one bank creates $250,000 in uninsured exposure. The same $750,000 spread across 3 banks creates 0 uninsured exposure. This strategy costs nothing and requires no special financial structure. Protection Step 3. Hold a portion of wealth and physical assets outside the banking system. Physical gold and silver held personally or in a private non-bank vault are not bank deposits. They are not classified as unsecured creditor claims under Dodd-Frank. They are not subject to the bail-in framework. They do not appear on a bank's balance sheet. In a banking system crisis, the value of physical precious metals is entirely independent of what happens to any individual bank or to the banking system as a whole. This is why gold and silver ownership and banking system protection are connected strategies for serious wealth preservation. It is not about distrust of banks for normal operating purposes. It is about understanding which portion of your wealth is inside the banking system's risk framework and which portion is completely outside it. Physical metals owned personally are completely outside it. Let me also address one important clarification about this topic, because there is misinformation circulating on social media that overstates what Dodd-Frank actually says. Dodd-Frank does not allow banks to arbitrarily take your deposits. Under the law, a bank must first enter a formal receivership process. Regulators at the FDIC, the Federal Reserve, or state financial protection departments must exercise their statutory authority to place the institution into that process. Only after that formal process begins can the bail-in mechanism apply to excess deposits. Banks cannot simply decide to take your money on any given day. The framework exists for institutional failure scenarios specifically. What is accurate is this. Deposits above $250,000 per ownership category are legally classified as unsecured creditor claims under current law. In an institutional failure under the Dodd-Frank framework, those deposits are genuinely exposed to conversion rather than repayment. That is the accurate and honest statement of what the law says. Not that banks can take your money at will, but that in a failure scenario, deposits above the FDIC threshold are not protected the way most Americans assume. Understanding the actual legal framework rather than the exaggerated version gives you the ability to take real protective action rather than reacting to misinformation. Let me bring everything together with the clean summary. The Dodd-Frank Act of 2010 replaced taxpayer-funded bank bailouts with a bail-in framework under which deposits above FDIC insurance limits can be converted to bank equity in a formal failure scenario. When you deposit money in a bank, you legally become an unsecured creditor. FDIC insurance covers up to $250,000 per depositor, per bank, per ownership category. Multiple ownership categories at the same bank can extend coverage significantly. The FDIC Deposit Insurance Fund covers approximately 1.3% of total insured deposits. In a systemic crisis, additional coverage requires a discretionary regulatory determination that is not guaranteed by law. The 3 protection steps are using FDIC ownership categories strategically, spreading deposits above the threshold across multiple institutions, and holding a portion of wealth in physical assets outside the banking system entirely. Physical gold and silver held personally are not bank deposits. They are not unsecured creditor claims. They are not subject to the bail-in framework under any circumstances. Most Americans have never heard of the bail-in provision, but it has been the law since 2010, and understanding it is the first step toward protecting wealth from a risk most people do not know exists. If this gave you clarity that you could not find anywhere else today, hit subscribe. RateScope covers wealth protection laws, IRS rules, retirement account strategies, and the legal reality behind your financial decisions every week. No hype, no agenda, just the data and what it actually means. Drop your questions in the comments. I read every single one. Logic, not hype. See you in the next one.